I'm no longer in a space of survival, thank God. At least I'm not in that framework anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to recalibrate what an art practice means for me now.
For Kosoko, the personal loss of kin, their mother, father, and younger brother have all passed, certainly entails grieving, but more importantly, ignites a profound meditation on what it means to continue seeking kinship and intimacy in the wake
of loss, grief, whatever.
Tragedy.
Tragedy, yeah.
That's cute. I'm going to turn to any of your pieces, and I'm going to read the first two words, and I want you to guess.
Do we want to unpack that a little bit?
We do.
Are you? It seemed like you were getting to something.
I'm getting to something. You're right. Let's go back. Sorry. For Kosoko, the personal loss of kin, their mother, father, and younger brother have all passed, certainly entails grieving, but more importantly, ignites a profound meditation on what it means to continue seeking kinship and intimacy in the wake of tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, again, so much of my reason for participating in making has to do with, I mean, originally it was about survival. You know, it was about how am I going to survive? How am I going to live in this world that, from what I can tell, hates my guts? You know, how am I going to not only live, but attempt to thrive, be happy, celebrate life, beauty, pleasure? Like, how am I going to do that? And I felt like art making, it was a way out of a very bad situation for me. I'm no longer in a space of survival, thank God. At least I'm not in that framework anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to recalibrate what an art practice means for me now.
And an occasion.
If it's not about survival. And so it does equate to kinship. You know, it does equate to elasticating ideas of intimacy, you know, connection.
What is yield from all of that is an occasion to invent, not reinvent, but to invent. And it made me think about what has that created for me, what occasion has this, what has been created for me in, you know, grief. I come from a background where they can die on you while they're still alive on this earth.
Talk about it.
And it's origin.
Many of us do. Right? I don't think it's only you.
Right. And the difference is taking that and not reinventing, but inventing what that had bred, or what it breeds out of you.
Yes.
That's what
and attempting to understand whatever is being bred. You know, like what is being manifested, you know, and the purpose thereof. You know, so I'm essentially, you know, which is why I feel like a part of my kinship with you is this. There seems to be a mutual concern around unpacking that. You know, no matter where it may lead us, but there seems to be something, that we're both curious about grappling with and maybe doing that work together, you know.
I like the two words used too. I think that's in common: kinship and intimacy. Because all of those are loaded terms. Kinship, for me, has always been a reference to Mother Africa in its very existence. And when my uncle used it, being a member of the Nation of Islam, I felt some pride in that. I felt blood is thicker than water, which doesn't mean blood of relatives. It means the blood of the covenant is thicker than water, of baptism, the Christianity, but the blood of the covenant among African people is thicker than the baptism of Christianity. And when I heard of that reference and how kinship interacts on that level, made me want that for my family. That we should come before any other systems that have run through the traditions and the generations of our family, particularly Christianity. That it should not usurp our bond as African, our kinship as African people. However, when there are not a lot of family members who are aware that their kinship was even in jeopardy because of the distance they've maintained or the death that they've subsumed within their families, then cognitive dissonance kick in, where there is no problem, there is nothing to fix, and enslaved mind stays an enslaved mind, and the pathology continues.
And I think, isn't so much of our work attempting to break those, you know, those family curses, those pathologies?
Absolutely.
You know?
Or to confront them.
At least to confront them, speak truth to them. You know, you know.
And I also look at one's level of being received into the institutions that we keep, you know, characterizing, because there's a specific definition.
I don't consider that kinship, though.
No, not at all.
If they are able to meet that, you know, but I do think that they create opportunities for kinship to emerge. But
right, I said that is what I was getting to, is that there's kinship within it, and we are being extracted out of it. And in this case, I am somewhat extracted out in working with you and collaborating with you and curating with you. I am in essence being extracted from the institutionalized mind of what I must do to get produced, for example, how I must write, how I must tell a story, the format it must take, how I must be slave to a format, how I must be slave to my every single bit of content without the advice or without the purview of the white gaze, that the white gaze has to be present in everything that I do. And
that's a lot.
Suggesting that maybe I'm not successful is because I refuse to write the white gaze, but I'm in this institution, so let me give it a try.
I've never written to the white gaze.
As a point of merit, a false merit, no doubt. So going back to the seeking of kinship is an authenticity that has not existed within my education field.
Sure.
So kinship is something that I've always had the natural ability, we will always have the natural ability to do.
How has the concept of chrysalis changed from the initial incubation to now?
I'm learning, like, as I continue to watch the footage and, you know, return to like some of my early writing about it. It's interesting because like there's like this predetermination, you know, there's all this writing and imaging and all that I've done, but then there comes a time when you have to just let that go and allow what is surfacing in the room to meet what you have intended. So I'm in this space now, just allowing what is rising naturally from sort of what I've given the team and the creative team, to see how that's matching and sort of commingling with some of my original intent. And yeah, just like what the sparks are, where the friction is, where the heat is, and I'm trying to follow that thread. Like even today, just watching returning to the set design for the project, I know that, you know, that silver mylar is water, and I want, I don't know, maybe it's through the bronze that's maybe taped down or something, but there's a way that there's this outline or this articulation of the earth, and so I now I see how I and Brianna, you know, how we perform in this work are like as these sort of like weather gods, or these like these entities that,
these celestial black bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I see.
So
and you are really,
I'm seeing it clearer now.
I do love the fact that you said, I want the print of a map of the earth on it, because too, now she's dual purpose of Mother Nature, Mother Woman in this piece.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. I love that it's a springboard from where it was, and there's no need to reference where it was.
Exactly.
It's just like the
it's
reference
just growing,
of
just allowing
pain
it
and
to
trauma.
grow.
It's how it's generated and invented in this community.
Yeah, and I'm allowing individuals to see what it's saying to me. What is this? What's coming off of it?
I'm curious about. Can you talk about how Brianna came into the project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brianna, we reconnected. So Brianna first studied with me years ago, I think like pre-pandemic. She took a course called either Building Your Biomythography or Creating Your Biomythography that I was teaching at the time.
Was that at Princeton?
I was teaching it at Princeton. I was also teaching it like as a workshop in the world as well. And so she took it as a workshop in the world. And yeah, there were so many incredible like black femmes specifically, but like a lot of queers and POC folks were in that workshop, I remember. But Gabrielle Seville was another incredible artist. She just sent me her book.
What stood out
that she
to
dedicated
you for Brianna?
But Brianna, it wasn't necessarily what stood out to me about her. She found me again. Like we found each other again over this past summer while I was at Cave Canem. I was a fellow in residency there, poetry fellow, and she was working the retreat. The poetry retreat, wrote this beautiful poem, shared it with the community during the public reading, and I was like, oh. And so I think she sort of was able to see me in my poetry space, and also in a sort of performance, sort of dancerly space. And then she saw that I was looking for performers. I was doing this thing at Governor's Island, and she showed interest, and I was like, yeah, you're incredible, come on through. And she was like, yeah, I want to come through.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that she would be the main processor in terms of who you were working?
I didn't. I was wondering, like, of you, Mage, myself, Brianna, and just the people who were like invited into the residency. I didn't quite know who wanted to be on stage and who wanted to kind of be on the periphery. And so the Governor's Island
clarified that.
Yeah.
That was interesting how everything took shape as as the identities of the processors came in. I recall when she bit on her what she was looking at when the topic was presented about the investigating and auditing the white gaze. from that topic, she immediately thought of her experience in that play we're talking about, playing that character, and how she wanted the opportunity to revisit that memory, to invent the identity of that character.
I tried to create room for that.
You did, and I recall the time in which you caught it when she brought it up. You're like, I'm interested. You were very specific. See, I'm more interested in that. That's exactly what you said, and it came out of you asking whether or not, are we centering the white gaze by referring to it in order to liberate the black body from it? Because I'm interested in doing the latter only.
Of liberating the black body.
Yes, that's what you said.
Exactly.
And that's why and then you turned to her and said, I'm interested in that. Bring that in. And that there launched how to.
Well, she wanted to investigate Elizabeth, that character, like this black character who had a pretty small role. Right,
had a pretty insignificant role because of the gaze she had upon her in her writing. And as a black performer, Brianna had experienced what that character actually experienced but couldn't show.
So how do
even in the direction, And when you asked for her to bring that in, that was for me, the impetus to give Chrysalis a reference point.
Which was?
What she brought in, that dilemma.
Oh.
From that trauma of that experience of a white director, white playwright, black role. You wanted to invent what her. You didn't want to go through no white gaze to find it out. You said that exists, yes, but I don't want you to be, a ghost is a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of a ghost, no matter what, right? So we're not going to play with all of the different ghosts, honey. We're just going to get to what you.
Yeah, we're going to the heart of this.
Yeah.
And I think it was also just about how to release, like what I don't do. Like I've done a lot of work to decenter whiteness. In my life. Like the amount of white people that I engage with has decreased significantly, and I had to do that as a kind of survival strategy, tactic, mechanism, so that's why, working with black folks, I'm like, who do I want to spend my time with? Like, if I'm going to be in the world touring, whatever, I'm curating who I'm doing that with, and who do I want to be in the room with? And not that, there's some white people I love, I adore, and not to confuse like whiteness, the project of whiteness, with like white people, because there's a lot of white people who understand their role in black space and what it means to decentralize whiteness in black space, But there's a lot of black folks who have internalized anti-blackness and white supremacy in such a way that it's inescapable, even in black spaces, And so I'm like, why evoke whiteness if we don't have to? Let that dog lie.
You abhor the proximity. You abhor the proximity to it. That's what I take from it. You abhor it, and I see it each and every time. You abhor the proximity to whiteness.
What that mean?
Exactly that. The proximity. There's no need to be near the proximity in order to express who you are and for you to come free of yourself. No, there's no need to be near the proximity of it. Not in his teaching, not in his learning, not in his articulation. I get it.
That's what our father brought.
It really is a distaste. I'm getting that now from you. It's a distaste.
I'm like, if we don't have to, let it
reminds me of Malcolm. I mean, think about it. It really does. That's Malcolm. Damn. You're just doing it in your creative way.
Exactly.
That gives you carte blanche. That's another liberty, though, of white engagement, of white proximity. You know,
And again, it's proximity. It's still over there. I'm in proximity. I don't deny the proximity.
Right.
I know that I'm very much in a space that is, held, produced. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that I have to always hold those that dilemma, that whether it's already there. I don't
right,
need
but if there's a whole race of people and a whole generation of people who held on to it for the sake of survival.
Yeah, then part of my work
teaching your
as
next generation
as a liberator.
Yeah, but I'm just giving the context of and now it's me. Now it's now.
What made you want to change that to not be surrounded by as many? What's the word you said again?
Whiteness.
Whiteness.
Whiteness is in the context of whiteness as power. As,
exactly.
Yeah, and as other being the objectification of whiteness.
But then you also talk about in a physical sense, correct?
In a critical sense?
Physical.
In a physical sense?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't have to. So there's a kind of toxicity that I think. I think to myself a lot of times, white people must get tired of white folks, but maybe they don't. I don't know. I get exhausted by whiteness to the degree where I just have to and I know it's something that a lot of black people may not be able to, because it's you can't escape it sometimes. But I've done a lot of work. You go through my IG, you're gonna see black folks. You go through my Netflix even, my Netflix literally, Stephen made a comment. It was why does Netflix only show the black icon for you, for your feed? But I realized that you have to teach these algorithms, you have to teach the people around, you have to, what are you trying to be fed? And I want to be fed a liberatory, black space. I want to see that. I want to be reminded of that as often as possible. Not to say that, of course, I love white folks, love white people. But I get exhausted by it. And especially when you have to work with white people, and under the guise of whiteness, in a kind of white framework, that's super exhausting. And I gave so much of my brain space, going to predominantly white college, working in predominantly white institutions, I've done a lot of that. And I felt firsthand the exhaustion on my body.
Oh, shit.
And I also feel the release of that when I can live in the world and not have to engage with that toxicity all the time, And there's all these cultural, we don't talk about whiteness, the culture of whiteness and, perfectionism and all of these I don't know, parameters, that, become these very imprisoning,
I've never had to deal with whiteness as much as I have to deal with the Negroes who are complicit in
the white framework?
Right, the white framework. Because I've only been dealing with, went out to all black schools, went to a black neighborhood.
Good for you.
That's how it was growing up in Houston, in my neighborhood. So that made me have to look at whiteness from how we deal with each other, and to make that become aware of that, and also to live with that awareness for a very, 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 very long time, a longer time, because I didn't see how white people did that to us. I saw how we did that to us. So anytime we get out of, for example, anytime any of us go to jail, well, what did he do? Like you're immediately going toward what you think and believe about other black people through the lens of whiteness, through the objectification of us. So I've only had to deal with the objectification of us in the eyes and in the company of other black people in black neighborhoods predominantly. And that's been piss poor because you have to, there's a lot of divorce in those relationships. Unfortunately, because again.
Well, and then I'm not saying also that, you know, separating yourself from the toxicity of whiteness means embedding yourself in a poverty of blackness, you know, or poverty mindset of blackness, you know. Like, I think there's a way that you find your people, you know, you find who you align with, you know, who you know, intellectually can land with, you know, and it's great if they can also be queer, black, you know, maybe older, and, you know, have lived a bit, you know, like we find a way of finding each other. You know what I mean? All right.
That's a good ending.
Good.
That's a very good ending.
I love
We find
this.
a way of finding each other.
We find a way of finding each other. To finding each other.
To finding each other. Wow.
All right. The end.
It's just a derivative of a derivative of a derivative of a ghost.
Of a ghost.